Welcome, everybody, to another glorious episode of Cash Flow Positive. I almost messed up on the name there, but I am your host, Kenny Bedwell, and we are going to be talking about direct bookings today. And more importantly, should you even do them? Should you even take them? I know Airbnb's been changing their policy around. They really don't want you to do it and getting guest information and all this stuff. And so I wanted to bring on one of the experts in the industry on getting direct bookings and crafting and building your website and making it super easy for you to do. My goal of this episode is for you to walk away with one or two tips that you can apply to start getting direct bookings to grow your business and maximize your revenue. So without further ado, I've got Gil from Crafted Stays. He's an owner, a host. So Crafted Stays is the company, and they build direct booking sites. Gil has an immense background he's got a tech background in e-commerce as well. And so super excited to have him on the show. And so without further ado, Gil, tell us more about yourself.
Yeah, Kenny, it's great to be here. So I'm a host myself. I'll start off there. I started hosting kind of in that big wave during the beginning of the pandemic when everybody's like, oh, let's go buy a property and we'll rent it out. So that huge mess of saturation, I'm part of that. But my day job was in e-commerce. I was a product director, so building software products. And I wanted to create our own direct booking site. I found out maybe 99% of our traffic or our revenues were coming from Airbnb that first year. And over time, we started to diversify against the different channels, but we wanted to go direct. And the only options I had was to build our website off our PMS or hire an agency and spend $10,000 on a website. And that just made no sense to me. And my day job was, again, in e-commerce. And I realized that in e-commerce, if you wanted to build an e-commerce store, you wouldn't go hire an agency and build out your e-commerce store. You'll sign up for a Shopify account. You'll add your products on there, pick out which theme you want to do, and you can launch your site within the same day. And I was like, wait a minute, our industry has nothing like that. So I coded the first version, spent 3-4 weeks coding the first version, shopped around with my mastermind peers, and I just shared it. And people were like, dude, this is amazing. And they convinced me to leave my W-2 job in tech.
Nice.
Don't know if that was a good idea or a bad idea. I went from making six figures to investing six figures into the company. So I know the show is cash flow positive. We were on the cash flow negative for a very, very long time.
So you're cash flow positive now, right?
We are yes. Actually, maybe to kind of get there, actually in February, we hit profitability for the first time. And for a tech company, that's amazing to be able to hit that within a year and 2 months. That's a huge win. But anyways, kind of getting back to it, we've now created a platform that allows you to connect your PMS and be able to bring all your property information, all your images, your pictures, your amenities, synchronize all that stuff, your rates, availabilities, and then you can choose from a variety of different templates and start to customize it. So it's a platform built for short-term rentals to really empower you to be able to do direct bookings. And we have a whole bunch of stuff that we want to do that I learned from the e-commerce industry, because I found that Shopify existed 14 years ago. If you wanted to build an e-commerce store, you could have done that 14, 15 years ago. But we are, to this day, prior to starting this company, you couldn't do the same in short-term rentals. So I'm trying to bring in all the things on how to do retargeting campaigns, running ads, to be able to do cart abandonment, bringing that into our industry. So I've learned a whole lot being in e-commerce, and I'm trying to bring all those tools, all those learnings, also all the technologies that's being built right now around AI, and really arming smaller hosts to be able to take advantage of that. So you will have all the same marketing tools that a big hotel might have, even though you might be running a few properties or 100 properties.
That sounds cool. Can I ask I'm just thinking of our listeners. I've been on your podcast, which that was awesome. We had a really good conversation. Maybe we'll circle back to some of those topics, but I wanted to first off and ask, how is e-commerce related to the hospitality industry, especially with short-term rentals? Yeah.
Oh my God. If you're thinking about two parallel industries, you can't get much closer than e-commerce and hospitality, or specifically short-term rentals.
Okay.
On the e-commerce side, you pretty much have two ways to really own in e-commerce or win in e-commerce. One, you are killing it on Amazon. Or two, you have done really well in your own marketing and you're able to sell direct to consumer, D2C. We won't talk about brick and mortar and retail and offline or offline sources, but those are the two ways. You either list on Amazon or you build your own store. And we're seeing the same thing where on our side, we have list on Airbnb, VRBO, or you get in direct or some mixture of the two. And the folks that do really well on both sides of the industry are the folks that are really leveraging the direct to consumer side of things. And so on the e-commerce side, we saw this big wave of folks really killing it on Amazon for many, many, many years. And then folks are trying to figure out, how do I make this a much more sustainable business? I don't want to be tied up with Amazon. And Amazon and Airbnb are not too dissimilar. They're very, very consumer facing. They're always thinking about, how do you deliver the best consumer experience? And who ends up hurting is the supply side. It's all the retailers. On our side, it's all the hosts. And that's why all of us that are on those forums, we talk about, gosh, I can't remove this review or I can't get ranked up. It's because we're so reliant on these platforms. And that's kind of pushed the whole wave on the e-commerce side to people starting their own stores and market themselves. And more recently, we're seeing that with direct bookings. So I see just a whole ton of parallels between the two industries.
That makes a lot of sense. That aligns pretty well. So, okay, so e-commerce, the parallel, you've got the, I love that. It's the platforms like Airbnb, VRBO, you got the direct bookings. Now, what else would be similar to and there might not be anything at all, you tell me. But what else might be similar you see like from an e-commerce side and maybe that guest flow or the client or I don't know, consumer flow versus like, booking a short-term rental property?
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of the same marketing tactics. And I think a lot of the professionals in our space, the digital marketers in our space actually come from a e-commerce retail background. And they're trying to guide folks on how to build out these funnels there. And really it's around like understanding who your customers are, like where are they shopping? What are they interested in? How do you build a good product that they like? It's getting in front of them, getting awareness into them, bringing them into the funnel, and then getting them to purchase. And if not purchase, how do you nurture them over time and then make them lifelong customers of yours? So the funnel is actually very, very similar there. And even on the channel side, it's a lot of the same channels. Like if you think about big e-commerce brands, where are they spending their time? TikTok, Instagram, maybe not as much Facebook groups. No, some actually, like there's a lot of like mothers groups that do really well with like sharing product ideas and such. So Facebook actually is a good one, but they're all in the same space there. They're all in the same consumer space. It's actually the same customers in many ways. We're all consumers. We're buying products. We're staying at properties. Like it's very, very similar there. And then on the other side of it, we think about websites the same way, where it's really about the conversion funnel. When you go onto a Shopify page, the whole site design is geared towards getting you to get inspired about the products, find the right products, add that to your cart, and hopefully check out. So similar to when we build Craft to Stays, we're thinking about how do we also like, yes, we want to make it beautiful, but like, how do we make it converting? How do we actually optimize it? How do we make sure it's search engine optimized? How do we make sure it works really well on mobile and desktop? So we obsess over all those things that big e-commerce platforms obsess over, but specifically about hospitality.
Okay, that's really, really fascinating. Let's dive into some of those things because I think it's worth. So most of the people listening to this that have direct booking sites, okay, I first off, I know a lot of them. My mom and maybe a close friend, and that's it. I'm just kidding. There's a few other people, but anyway. But no, I know a lot of them, and usually what they do is maybe they have OwnerRez or Hospitable or some property management software, and they have like a site that they can pull from there, like a templated site for direct bookings, and they use that. But then they're stuck with getting traffic to the site. And then not even that, like converting the traffic as well. So it's like kind of two problems, like you said, like this funnel. And so how is, and we can talk crafted stays, but also just in general, like how should a direct booking site be laid out to help generate, like bring in traffic that will stay and then also convert? Like what are the pieces to that are really important?
Yeah, I think like first and foremost is like really understanding who your ideal guest avatar. And you'll hear me say this a bunch. And I know Kenny, I think you were on stage one time. You had people like count out the amount of times you said moat. I think it was.
Yeah, I kind of was like, every time I say moat, take a drink.
Yeah. So I might do that with guest avatar.
There you go.
But it really starts there, is really knowing who you're speaking to. And why I emphasize this is we talk about this when we are acquiring the right asset, when we're designing the right asset, but also when you're messaging throughout your entire funnel there, you want to make sure it's actually probably most important here is like when you're talking to that person, you want them to feel like you're speaking directly to them, not a group there. So if your properties are family-friendly stays, you better make sure that that hero image speaks to that, or that tagline speaks to that. You want them to feel like when they're landing on the page, oh, this is a property, or this is a place I want to stay at. So it really, really starts there. And you can do this on the PMS websites. You can do it on Crafted Stays, but make sure you do not shortcut yourself and just like gloss over that. Don't use the boilerplate templates and all that stuff and just leave the text there. Like, don't do that to yourself. And I think that's where a lot of people fail is they think that, oh, a really beautiful looking site with all the right pieces will get someone to convert. No, it's really making sure that that person feels like, oh, this is a stay for me. So do your homework on that one. On kind of the second side of it is kind of the trust building. How do you make it comfortable for someone to really trust you when they have other options? It's very easy for someone to say, I can book on Airbnb. I know they'll take care of me. But when I'm going direct, you don't have that relationship built out just with them yet. So how do you make it trustworthy? So we do things like making sure that your FAQs are on each one of the pages. So each template that we have an FAQ section that we encourage folks to fill out. And so maybe taking a step back, when we onboard each one of our hosts, they go through a set of checkboxes that they should fill out. And we found that when we guide our hosts through this process, not only are we building a beautiful website, but we're building in a way that helps people convert. So like we ask people to put in their host image and their bio, and we put that on the bottom of every one of our templates because when we tested, when you put your face in front of your website, people have someone to really connect with. So they're not thinking about it as a big property management company. And you may have 40 doors, 100 doors. That doesn't mean that you should remove yourself from that website. You still want to be a face of it. And oftentimes you want to feel smaller. It's really ironic. You want to feel smaller on a direct booking site than bigger. A lot of people feel like it's the other way around, but it's not. And 2, FAQs. 3, it's like just making sure that you have a whole booking flow that people feel like, oh, this is not just some website that's being cobbled together. It looks really professional. The flows look really professional. So we take care of all of that stuff. So all in all, like you're trying to build trust in that user there. And then 3rd is really making sure that you map out the entire guest journey of how they discover your properties, how they search for it, how they get a quote, how they check out, and making sure that's really well oiled. If you're using Crafted Stays, we take care of all that stuff for you, so you don't really have to worry about that. And we're constantly iterating on how do we make that experience even better. So those are some of the pieces that we think about whenever we're designing any of our templates.
Gotcha. Okay. Now, I think that direct bookings sound really cool to people, but it's getting them to understand, number one, how do I get people to use it? Number 2, how do I get people to, which we kind of just talked about, getting people to book. I just want to throw that in there because that is a common problem or question I get. And then number 3, how do I vet my guests as well? And that's kind of what I want to ask you next is like with Crafted Stays and your experience, because unlike e-commerce, I will say this, unlike e-commerce, sure, someone can book your place, but you don't know who they are, what background, anything like that. So How do you do that in a direct booking platform?
Yeah. So we actually partner up with many of the major PMSs, and we try to figure out what the right experience looks like for each, which PMS you're using. And each one of them have different facilities and different capabilities there. But I'll use, like, for instance, Hospitable for an example. For Hospitable, we will pull in all your property information, all your amenities, all your rates, all your availabilities. So we can surface all your properties without having you needing to enter in all your information or build out your property pages. We'll build out your search. We'll even get a quote. So whenever someone's interested in booking a stay, we'll show the quote on there. And then when they're ready to book, we will actually push them over to the Hospitable checkout pages. And this is the first time that they'll see this. And the reason why we do it is, one, Hospitable doesn't have the ability for us to, like, do a checkout and then push it to them.
Right.
So we use the Hospitable checkout, but then afterwards, you get to take advantage of what Hospitable has built in, which is like identity verification, damage protection, some of those facilities that they kind of built in already there. With owner-res, for instance, we still require people to do what's it called? The rental agreement. The rental agreement. And for us specifically, as part of the rental agreement, we ask them to upload a picture of their ID as well too, that we check across. For me personally, for some of our direct bookings, if it feels kind of fishy to me, I would just call the person up and just kind of, like, one, I make it feel like it's more of a welcome. So, like, thank you for booking with me. I'm Gil. I'm the host. Thank you for traveling. What's your reason for the visit? So I can make sure that the stay is perfect for you. So I get to know them a little bit better, but it also helps me flag if something feels a little off to me, then I can go ahead and cancel the booking and refund them if I need to. But so far, we haven't had any issues where someone booked direct and ended up becoming a scam and so on. But it's probably because we put in all these processes in place that we don't have to worry about it.
Okay. No, that's really cool. It's good that you have, and so kind of a follow-up, maybe more of a softball question, but I see a lot of people get anxiety when it comes to, like, setting up a direct booking site, right? Like, great, I don't know how to, some people are like, I'm not technically inclined. I don't know, like, owner-res is complicated. Also, on the flip side, you have services out there. I don't like naming names on the podcast, but services, and you know who they are, they charge $5 or $6 grand to set up the whole thing for you, which sounds attractive from, like, someone will do it for me, but that's expensive in my opinion, So that discourages a lot of people from doing it because they're like, maybe they only have one property and they're like, $5 or $6 grand, like, that's a lot. And so they're like, crap, now I got to learn WordPress or this other stuff. So you've come in, so let's migrate into Crafted Stays. And you've created a platform that can integrate in, but why? What's the motivation? Why is what you've done easier to help people create a direct booking site?
Yeah. So, like, I think first off is, like, we built our platform in a way that is for someone that isn't super tech savvy or doesn't come from my background, which is in tech. So a lot of our users are hosts that manage a couple properties. Their job prior to this was not anything close to tech.
Yeah.
So we built our entire onboarding experience towards that type of user. So we kind of guide that user through the flow. We have them connect their PMS. So we try to make it very seamless there. And what we found is that also, like, even on the template side, a lot of the agencies sometimes will use the same 6 base templates or maybe even more. But they're pretty much the same templates, but styled a little bit differently.
Yeah.
So what we didn't want to do is, like, rob someone from being able to create a site that they feel like it's their own there. So on our side, we basically ask them to connect their PMS. And then they choose from a variety of different templates to use. And then we have a very easy to use, what we call it WYSIWYG, but basically it's what you see is what you get. Is you basically have a panel on the left side of all the different sections that you can click through. Yep. You can see your live site there, and you can make any modifications to the taglines or hero images. So we try to make it very easy for someone to be able to create a site from scratch. And the nice thing is that it's all integrated back into your PMS. So your favorite sections, your review sections are all pulling from your property information there. So we try to make that whole entire process super seamless as part of the onboarding flow. And I still do it to this day, and I hopefully can continue to do this, is I still onboard every single one of our customers. So when you sign up for an account with us, the first screen we ask you is, do you want to book a time to get started? And I would jump on a call with each one of our customers. It's a half-hour call, but basically it gives me a sense of understanding who's my users, what have they tried, what are they trying to accomplish, and that gives me a lot of input on how to improve the product. And at the same time, I'm able to step through and connect someone's PMS in front of them, add their properties, help them pick out a template and make some edits in there. And we're able to launch a site in as quick as 15 minutes. It's super seamless. And they can spend more time to fine tune it, add new pages, add a things to do page. Maybe they're going to co-hosting and they want to add a co-hosting page with a form on the bottom. But what I don't want to have them do is like spend a week, 2 weeks to build out a website. I want to make it as easy as possible, but while giving them the power to customize it to greater lengths.
Gotcha. Okay. That's really cool. So it's easy as connecting what you currently have and getting up and going, right?
Yeah. And you can pick out different templates based on your style. You can even browse through the template library and see kind of what it looks like before you apply it. And then and we actually have you can actually apply multiple templates. So you can play around with them and see like, it might look better with this one or this one. You can kind of play around and see which one looks better. And which one you decide, you just activate that, and that becomes basically the one that's you're being used on your live site.
Awesome. How expensive? This sounds really cool, but how expensive is it?
It's relatively cheap. Not spending thousands of dollars. so normally it's $89 for the first 2 properties, and then $8 for each additional property, and that's monthly. Right now we have a $30 discount for the first 12 months. So it's $59 for the first 2 properties. When I created this company, I didn't want hosts to feel like they had to mature to a certain property count to be able to be successful at direct bookings. No. I didn't want whether or not they had the funds available to build a direct booking site or the know-how to stop them from investing into it. Because what I found is that it takes time for you to build out your direct booking engine. It's not like you build out your website and the next day you start getting 50% direct bookings. It takes time for you to build that marketing engine, that direct booking engine. And I wanted to encourage folks to start as early as possible and to invest into that over time. And that stuff will compound. So I wanted to lower that barrier to entry for folks to be successful at becoming independent.
Yeah, for sure. No, I love it. I love that a lot. And people I'm sure appreciate that too, because I think, like I said earlier, and that's why I wanted you to literally almost spell it out. It isn't that hard to set up a site in today's world. There's a technology available. It's just, here's a resource, taking the plunge and getting it set up. Now, once you have your site set up, here's the magic question. How are people supposed to get traffic to it?
Yeah. I'll say it again. It starts with knowing your ideal guest avatar and knowing kind of where they are. So after we started building these beautiful sites on Craft Estays and we launched last January 24, we started getting the same question. How do I get traffic on my site? And what we ended up doing is we started a podcast, which you're on, where every week we bring on another guest or another host actually, that has done really well at direct bookings. And they're sharing their specific tactics on what they have done. And what I found over the time of, we're now 60 episodes deep into it, is that there's not...
What's the name of the podcast? You can say.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, it's called Book Solid.
Book Solid. Okay. All right.
Yeah. And what I found after recording all these episodes, that there's not like one way, like one perfect way to do it. Everybody's portfolio is different. Everybody's skill sets are different. And there's many different ways of targeting this. There are some foundational stuff that everybody should be doing. Everybody should be building a list. You got to be building an email list, because if you don't, you have no way of reaching people continuously. 2, you have to be nurturing them. You have to continue to speak to them, because they may not book with you right now. They may have stayed with you recently, but they're not going to be booking for another 9-10 months. So you want to make sure that you're nurturing them. Those are the two foundational pieces that everybody should be investing, no matter what strategy they're doing. But outside of that, you can be doing use UGC content, which is user generated content on Instagram. You can do hire influencers. You can be super active on Facebook groups. You can run ads. There's a whole bunch of things that you can do, but it really starts off with knowing who is staying at your place and how do you target them. For instance, if you are in a big metro area and you are doing business days, you may not want to be spending time on Instagram. You may be wanting to spend more time on LinkedIn to be running ads and posts. Or if you find that you are geared towards construction workers in towns, you may try to figure out, like, how do I actually figure out who's coming into town? How often are they coming in? Where are they coming in from? And starting to create relationships with the organizations that are sending people there. I've seen some folks that are super niche where they're really passionate about fishing, and that's why they bought their lake house. And they're super active on the Facebook communities. They know all the local businesses, and they get 70% direct bookings just by using Facebook groups. And so, like, it really depends on who you are, what your niche is, what your experience is, but also it depends on kind of who's traveling there and where are they discovering things? Where are they looking for things and trying to get ahead of them and then to nurture them over time?
Yeah, I love that. Would you, I mean, maybe a little biased here, or you will be, in this response, but I mean, truthfully, like, would you say someone should get a direct booking site just to get a direct booking site, or should they get a direct booking site and have a plan on how they want to use it?
A little bit of both. It's really hard to have a plan without knowing what to do first. And I feel like a lot of folks don't start it because they don't have a plan or they don't have it spelled out there.
Yeah.
But I find that direct bookings, so I make this analogy a lot. When you think about Airbnb, you should really think about it as transactional based. You're trying to get your next transaction. You're trying to get your next booking there. But that's very, very different than direct bookings. On direct bookings, it's compounding. The things that you do compounds over one another. So as you build out your email list, that grows and becomes more effective over time. As you improve your Instagram profile, you get more followers there. That compounds over time. The more emails you send out, the more data you get of, like, which emails are working, which ones are not working. So those are activity that grows over time. So you may start small that first year, but your goal is to really use that as a way to test and iterate on things. So to have a plan is kind of not naive, but it's hard to really effectively do, because what's more effective is going out there, trying a few things, spending time on as little things as possible, but continue to iterate on those things. And then you can start to add more and more layers to it. But, like, don't go out and try to do, I want to run Facebook ads. I want to run Facebook ads. I want to build a blog post to do SEO, and I want to do an email nurture campaign and do all those things month one. It's going to be really hard to know really what marketing tactic is really effective for you. Yeah,
that's a really good point. I like that, because I think that at the end of the day, people are, they hear all these different ideas of what you have to do to try to get direct bookings, and they try it all. And the problem is, when you try to do everything, you're not good at one particular thing. You might be all right at everything, but all right doesn't really sell, And so I also think it too. I think it comes to partly to understanding your niche. Like, what are you good at? Some people are really good at social media and, like, creating reels and other things that are relevant. I personally, I mean, I don't know if you follow me. Like, okay, like I'm gonna say I struggle with it, but I'm trying to find my niche, but for a property, I'm like, I don't know, you know what I mean? But man, I really love email marketing. And I think that's actually, like, one of my stronger suits. And, like, I have an email marketer who writes all my copy, but then I take it and I'm like, oh, no, this is going to be better for my audience, and then I craft it and it's a lot better and converts a lot more. And I get more excited about that than creating, like, really stupid reels that I do. But, but for my properties, it's the same thing. Like, I'm like, look, I'm not going to go and do some stupid TikTok dance in front of my house or like, oh, wow, have you like come here this week? Like, I don't go to the property, but I'm really good at sending emails in interest about why people come to the area, which generates traffic and that trust factor that you're looking for to get them to the direct booking site to convert. And so I stick to that, and it works. And I think that what you just said, I mean, there's all these different options and people get overwhelmed with what they have to do. But really, it's like, let's just pick a few and start there. And then, like you said, small iterations and it compounds. I really like that. So,
yeah.
Any thoughts on that?
Yeah. I mean, like that's what I've learned through all the episodes is that like, there's no perfect way to do it. Yeah. And no one has the secret plan to do it. And it's because we all come from different skill sets. Right. And we look at things differently. And you might want to honestly, there's a lot of tactics that you can do. There's a lot of small little things that if you apply, you can gain a bit better leverage. You can learn those things over time there, but don't use the tactic as a way to define what your strategy is. You really want to figure out what are you really good at and how can you kind of start iterating on those things. So for instance, you mentioned whether or not you're close to the property or not. If you live near the property and you have the ability to film more often and you can bring your friends in and you can film lifestyle, that's something that you can actually leverage. I can't do that because I'm thousands of miles away from our properties. So there's things that I can do and I cannot do based on just who I am and my skill sets. So I do more things like I install Google Analytics on our site so that we know where the traffic is coming from. I run email campaigns that I look at the click-through metrics on those. So and I'm a bit on the geekier side. So that's where I find a lot of passion, kind of similar to you, Kenny. Those are kind of the domains that I like diving into and I find greater leverage. And if I know that if I apply my skills kind of on the social side, I'm going to flop. So if I'm going to do social media, I would rather hire someone to help me on that side. Yep. I might hire an influencer. I might hire a consultant to help me run my socials. But me running it myself so far away, I just feel like I wouldn't be successful doing that right now.
Right. Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. Okay. No, that's really cool. So, yeah, man, we've covered a lot on direct booking so far. So what is there a ideal target or ideal ROI or whatever that you like to see clients try to get to know it's worth it for them to, do a direct booking site?
Yeah. So I think the goal in the first year is to start to get double digits direct bookings. So anything from 10 plus direct booking rate is a good one. It's starting to get, you're starting to get signal that these things are working. And you try to really reverse engineer what tactics actually led that person to book with you. Is it because they found you on Airbnb first because you left them a little seed there to find you elsewhere? Is it that you're sending your email campaigns really well? Or is it the business cards that you're leaving there? What is it that's leading that person there? And then over the next 2 or 3 years, so year 2, year 3, you're trying to get to that 40 to 60% direct booking rates. And I've seen over and over again, people getting really effective at that. But it's one of those things that I think a lot of times we feel like short-term rentals should be passive. And I feel like that's totally wrong. Otherwise we just do long-term rentals. We have automations, we have tools to make it more seamless, but it's not a passive business. Right. And the people that actually spend the time and energy on it, they build a very sustainable business over time. And I've seen people that first year, they're getting double digits, but the next year they're starting to get 2-3x that. And that's the success that we want to continue to nurture with our clients.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense. All right. That's really cool. What was the other question I was going to ask you on that? So when it comes to, yep, that's right. So how do you attract people? This is a question I get a lot too. When it comes to getting people to go from, hey, they stayed at your place from Airbnb to leaving that, you said nugget behind, to tell them about your direct booking site. What are some methods that you've learned that are effective to be able to do that?
Yeah. I think the first thing is really to make sure that they had a fabulous stay. And I think that is probably the biggest contributor to
it's important.
Yeah. I think we often ignore that. I think Airbnb has ingrained to us that we need to get that 5-star rating there.
Right.
And we're thinking about the review as the thing. But what I really want people to flip is like, how do I make it so that this person continues to
wants to come back,
wants to talk about us. They come back and in their office, they're talking about the lovely state that they have. So it really starts off there. And you might want to think about how you amenitize your place, the little things that you have around the place that makes that place really special there. So they think like, oh, the next time I'm visiting, I either want to stay at the same property, or if I'm visiting someone else, does this owner actually have another property elsewhere? You want to create that relationship there where they're really trusting you with their vacations.
Right.
And I think like if you can do that really well, you're more than 50% in the way there. And then from there, it's really continue to nurture them so that they know to come back to you. So one is like making sure that they know that they're not just staying at Airbnb, but they're staying at XYZ property management or whatever property management name is. So it's leaving cues. Like for instance, we have in Gatlinburg, we have a big wooden sign that says Palelo's Pool Retreat and our property management name right when you drive up. And it looks natural, like it's meant to be there. But that's when they're driving up to the place, they get to recognize our brand name. It doesn't say Airbnb. There's nothing on the property that says Airbnb. We drop coasters in our property that has our brand name in there. So you want to really let them know that they're staying at a high quality stay, but also that they're not just staying at Airbnb. And then if you can collect their emails, nurture them over time.
And you're doing that through like StayFi or whatever.
Yeah. We use StayFi at all of our properties. And then once you get on StayFi, we have an automatic 12-month nurture campaign that goes through. And the whole campaign is really value all the way up until month 9. So we actually don't ask them to stay again. We don't give them any discounts. We'll actually have a little small button at the very bottom, but really we're trying to stay top of mind with them. And we found that because our booking windows are usually 60, 90 days, starting month 9, that's when we start to give them an offer to stay again with us. And maybe we'll give them a discount. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to provide value so that they don't look as us, our brand, or these emails as spam. We don't want to appear like that.
Yeah. And are you focusing on local things? Like what are you in your emails? What are they?
Yeah, they're usually typically local things, but they're not time bound. They're not tied to a specific season or a specific event. Because what we don't want to do is create these nurture campaigns and reference like fall when we're coming out of winter. Because that's that's such a long span. So we talk more about the things to do around the year, or the restaurants to visit, or the little nuggets around town, or our favorite stories and moments of when we visit there. And it's more about that. And then outside of that, we do quarterly emails where we talk about the different things in the seasons so that we're bringing people in. But that 12-month nurture campaign is agnostic to time of year.
Gotcha. How often are you hitting them with emails?
Every month.
So once a month? A newsletter type or?
It's usually a newsletter type, but we try to keep it low branding. So it's usually more text than it is images.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Do you track like the conversion statistics of it?
A little bit. Ironically, I've been spending more time on our business.
Sure.
Craft Estays for the last year and a half. So I haven't spent as much time on it. But yeah.
I mean, it's like when you're thinking about all these things and everyone listening, I mean, you could go down some serious rabbit holes. And it's not necessarily the wrong, but I think that the more time you can dedicate to this stuff, I think you get better results, right?
Absolutely.
If you're just like, throw it up on Airbnb, see what I get, that can work. And that's what most people are hoping for. But then when they have to start putting a little more effort, that's where the friction of like, okay, do I really want to do this comes into play? And we're really running businesses, and in businesses, like, I mean, Gil, with Crafted Stays, I know with STR Insights, like, every single email we send out, we get a report that's like, what was the open rate? How many people unsubscribed? What was the read-through rate? What was the click conversion rate? How many meetings did we actually schedule from the click, and which links worked, what didn't work? And it's like, which subject lines got us a higher open rate and all this stuff, and like matching these things and creating like the ultimate like converting email. And then when you put it all together the right way, you're like, and you see it come together, you're like, dang, like we did it. But if you're not tracking it, you still get stuff, but it's just not as powerful as like diving deeper every single step. But you could go on and on and on, right?
Yeah, I mean that goes back to what we were saying earlier about like you need to be iterating on these things.
Yeah.
So you might just put one out there and you might then focus on something else, but make sure you go back and take a look at it. So we've iterated on it a few times now where I feel like it's pretty well oiled, and therefore you get to a point where like you do all your iterations and you're starting to see the metrics start to plateau where you kind of have like a good sense like, okay, this is good. Let me focus on another side of our business.
Yeah, I love it. But no, that's really cool. Thank you so much for sharing. So Gil, as we're kind of wrapping up here, what other tips or tricks? I'll kind of ask this question in a number of ways, but any like tips or tricks on the topic of direct bookings that you recommend people do?
I would say probably the best resource that I can provide as a guest on this show is on our website, craftedstays.co. If you go /resources, we actually have an ebook that kind of
throwing up the website down below for those watching on YouTube, craftedstays.co. So go ahead. You think about you. Okay.
But if you go to that /resources, or even if you hit the resources tab on the very top of the page, we have an ebook that kind of walks people through the foundations of how to build your direct booking website and your engine there. So it talks about when you're building a website, it doesn't even have to be on Crafted Stays, but what should you look out for? Like things like SEO, things like site load times, how do you make sure you optimize for mobile, things of that sort. We talk about how to get in front of people, the different channels there. And we also definitely talk about knowing your ideal guest avatar and some of the things that you can do to really learn more about your guests.
Yeah.
So for instance, in the ebook, it kind of walks through just like knowing your ideal guest avatar. But like one tactic that you can do now in the age of AI is grab all your reviews and all of if you have like OwnerRes or any of the PMSs, do a dump of who's staying with you. Maybe if you have the data field, like where they're coming from, put this all into ChatGPT. And then it starts to help you map out, these are the places that people are traveling from. These are the group sizes. So if they find that you have four adults and 4 kids, you're likely multi-family, multi-generation, maybe even. You start to understand your persona a bit more. It reads through all your reviews, so it can tell you what people are saying, what they liked about your stay, what makes it different. So you can use that to start to craft your messaging there. Okay. All in all, the ebook kind of goes through all that. And then at the very end, kind of going back to like the tactical side, there's 41 tips on how to drive direct bookings. You don't have to use all of it. Don't use all of it. But it gives you a sense of like how to start thinking about things. So hopefully that becomes kind of the launch pad to how to get into direct bookings.
That's awesome. No, that's cool. So craftedstays.co is the site, but craftedstays.co/resources for the ebook. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Well, Gil, as we're kind of wrapping up here, man, just going to the in line with the podcast name and everything. What's one way people can cash flow positive? What's your piece of advice?
I'll go back to it. Knowing your guest avatar.
Knowing the guest avatar. All right.
Yeah. So even though I'm all about direct bookings, I'm all about conversion and making the most highly effective converting sites, it really starts off with knowing who you're actually tailoring to, what services are you providing, and how do they look at you. So if you start there, you have a much stronger foundation to build off of.
I love it. Okay, cool. Well, Gil, thank you so much for being on the show. This was really helpful. I think a lot of people, so most of the people listening to this usually have between 1 to 5 properties, maybe more, maybe no properties, but it's good to, I know most of them don't have direct booking sites. And if they do, it's very, very basic. And so hopefully you can just walk away from this if you're listening and take some sort of action, one thing that you can go and start applying to start getting more direct bookings. But Gil, thank you so much for being on the show. Enjoyed having you. Good talking to you again. And thanks everybody for listening. And I'll see you on the next episode of Cash Flow Positive.